Every day, I would say, was a struggle of pushing myself to work. Maybe I'm not good enough, but hopefully, no one finds it out.
Remove all those things you have mentioned. What was the initial thought process like for you to actually realize that you need help?
I used to always think that I don't deserve it. I know I've worked hard in my life to get what I want. But when I walked into that room, my manager, with a very, very sad face, said that unfortunately, this year we cannot give you a salary raise. All of that came true in that one moment. The pain was like unbearable for me at that point in time. Salary raises, now that I think about it, is not a big deal. But it was more than that. That incident opened up every belief that I thought about myself came true for me. From now onwards, only good things are going to happen.
Before we dive into this conversation, please give me just 20 seconds. I know you've got hundreds of podcasts you could listen to, but any point during Unlayered, you paused and thought, that was me, or I felt that too. I'd love to ask a quick, simple favor. Please help me with a follow or subscribe to my channel, because that one click will not only help me bring more conversations to you, but for others who might need it. And it means the world for this work to continue. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conversation.
Hi, Ritu. Welcome to Unlayered. I'm really, really excited to have you here on Unlayered. So, before we start, I think for all the listeners, just a kind of a quick intro who doesn't know who Ritu is. Maybe a quick introduction about you would be really helpful. So, I'll open up the floor for you. But again, thanks so much for doing this with me.
Thanks, Pan. I am very happy that you invited me for this, and honestly, very, very honored. For those who don't know me, I am Ritu. I am a chartered accountant and a career builder across countries. Um, at the core of it, I am someone who has struggled a lot with imposter syndrome, and I am someone who is now in the evolution of becoming a better person and helping people through my journey. So that's me. And otherwise, yes, I am based in Melbourne, and I am also a career coach, and I help women just advance in their careers.
Amazing. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Ritu. I listened to your story. I wanted to take the listeners or yourselves back into that little Ritu who was growing up in India. If with your permission, so I wanted to ask, like, what's kind of the earliest, maybe the fondest memory that you have growing up in India? Like, you can share a little bit more about what was it like and the setting, the family environment. Are you open to?
Of course, of course. And I think that is the crux of my story and my evolution. So, growing up, I have grown up in a very humble middle class Indian family where my parents were educated, and the good part is that they sent me to school, they sent me for higher education, and they supported me in all of that. But I did not grow up in a very rich household, and I knew that if I wanted a bigger life, I have to fend it myself. So I always had that ambition that I want to do something bigger in my life, whether it is, just helping more people around me and creating impact. And that actually came from me seeing a lot of inequality around me, a lot of poverty where I grew up. So, India being a developing country, there is a lot of inequality that you see on a day to day basis. So, at the core of me, I always wanted to reach a place where I'm able to help these people. I didn't know how, but I knew that I want to help people around me. So I did my education. I did everything that you're supposed to do, like at least at that point in time while growing up, you don't have a lot of options. So you either become a doctor, you become an engineer, you become those things that, couple of options that you have and the society tells you to do. So I did that, I grew up, I studied hard, then I studied science because I didn't know what else to do. I never even thought, what I should be doing. But I then pivoted into commerce and I took up chartered accountancy, all because I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be rich. I didn't know exactly what am I going to do, but I knew that probably this is going to give me money. So that's the kind of thoughts and the emotions that I grew up with, that I have to break the kind of story that I grew up with, and finding ways to have a richer life, have a bigger life.
I think I can connect that part to myself growing in a similar environment. What does success look like for you? So, like, if you look at it in the little Ritu's way, let's say, you can take back many years as you want to, if you can visualize what. So you picked up education, higher education, doing science. Did you like what does really success look like for you in that phase of your life?
So at that point, like for me, success meant being able to afford things that I could not afford easily when I was younger. Like I come from a like very like think of a middle class family where you get you have everything, the basic necessities are there, but anything bigger, if you want to expand your thinking and if you want like a car or something, like if you wanted to travel abroad overseas, that was not on the table. So for me, a lot of success at that point in time was like me being able to buy anything that I want for myself, like within obviously like modest means, being able to provide for my family because I wanted, like growing up as an Asian, you are somewhere looking after your parents when they get old. So I always wanted to provide for my parents and my wider family as well. And a couple of instances that happened is when I was studying, I met a lot of friends who are very rich. And once I was in a five-star hotel with them and they were having a cold coffee. They ordered a cold coffee. And at that time, that was pretty expensive. And I remember like saying that I'm not hungry right now. It's okay. Like, I'll probably order later. Those kind of things, like when they just they ignite something in you that, oh, why I cannot afford that at all. And those kind of instances, that they just made me like a lot more ambitious, that I do not ever want to be in that situation where I'm saying no to things that I want to do. So at that point in time, for me, success meant like just being able to afford what I can, uh, like in a very very humble manner, I would say, and being able to provide for my family. And as I said, like right at the beginning, that I really want to help people around me. But for that, I had to, I would say, you have to fend for yourself first. Only then you can support others. You can't support if you are yourself, broke, or you are not in a great situation. So at that point, that really meant.
Wow, I love that story of the cold coffee.
Actually,
Like,
I've never shared it before. This is the first podcast that I'm sharing it in.
no, I'm so glad that it sparked you to share that story because it's a little story that can resonate with many people.
Yeah.
I mean, we take little things, little those moments for granted sometimes, and really ignore the our sense of self and how and why we have become the version of ourselves in that moment and in this stage of life. So yeah, that makes sense. So you wanted to achieve what you didn't have in terms of like kind of financially, but also I see a sense of safety in that as well. um if I may ask, so what did that little Ritu had to become or believed in to become safe at that stage?
So you've got it right on that it is the stability and the safety that I was looking for. And I knew one thing, that money is that one thing that can make you safe, because you can, I mean, yes, there are different aspects of safety. You can, like, family safety and emotional safety. But for me, I knew that if I want to be able to have a bigger life that I want, it has to come from the financial security, which I never saw in my family. I knew that we were living a life which was like completely middle class. Like, like you there's not much scope of extravagancy out there. Like you are budgeting for going out and eating outside. I didn't want all of that. I wanted something bigger. But I knew that for me to reach that stage, I first need to be able to protect myself, like have that bare minimum to be able to command more. So even today, that kind of plays a big role, that I do not want to be in a toxic situation. I do not want to be in a toxic corporate environment. I have been, and maybe I'll share that, like in our story. But every situation that I've been in, my financial safety has helped me, like being prepared for it financially. I know it comes from a place of scarcity,
Yep.
and this is something I'm still working on. My money mindset, like being able to receive, is something that I still struggle with. I'm trying to read books of manifestation to be able to combat that, but that still plays such a big role in my life.
And it's a very um, interesting and insightful thought, like a pattern that kind of grows with you. And that's the idea, like kind of, I think this conversation and the story and putting it out matters for you to also understand that parts of of yourself who you have carried. And like it's sometimes we see, and a profound saying my mentor told me is like, we are still children walking in adult bodies. We are still the little children who grew up with an environment with those belief patterns and thoughts and aspirations, everything. It's just building a little bit more space between the, the current version and that the younger version. So it's interesting. So I feel like from that earlier on, that you were very ambitious, so that you were driving yourself to get to that state, whether it's financial security, psychological safety, or any other kind of safety you were aspiring to become. So I felt like, were you like a high achiever in school? Like walk me through that part, doing science and then the financial.
I have been a high achiever, but not a high performer. And I'll
Okay.
tell you the difference. So basically, starting right from school, I was a mediocre. Okay. I was not the one who was topping school's ranks. I never got that. Okay. I used to work hard, and I still have this thing that I have to work hard to get success. Okay. Like, and I feel a lot of brown people face that thing, that I have to work twice as harder. But yeah, that has been the reality with me. But in school, I never got top rank. I was a mediocre. I passed. Even when completed my science, I course, I did it because my family, no one was in commerce. So I'm like, oh, I don't know what else to do. So let me take it up. And again, the scarcity that there plays up, because my parents told me that, look, from science you can go to commerce and arts, but if you take up commerce, you can't go back to science. At least at that point, you couldn't switch that easily. This is back in 2000, I'm talking about 2006, 7. So it was, everything was based on that decision, that, okay, a little bit of scarcity, that, oh, I may not be able to do this, a fear of missing out. But then I really did put my foot down, and I'm like, look, I cannot be a doctor. I cannot be an engineer. I don't understand all of it. Let me try commerce. And that's how I started doing BCom, which is Bachelor's of Commerce. But then I knew that average people don't make it. Okay, at least in a country like India, where there are billions of people, you have to be a lot more than just doing a bachelor's. So then I did chartered accountancy, because I'm like, I have to be better than the average. And I I gave myself this one challenge, that if I clear my first exam, then I'll continue doing the chartered accountancy. Otherwise, I'll take up something else. And did clear my first exam. So then again, when I went through that 5 years of strenuous training of, chartered accountancy being one of the toughest exams in India, um, it everything was driven that, okay, I have to complete this, I have to be better than others, because otherwise I will not get a job. And my early career, again, I started with a small investment banking firm, that was based out of relationships that I had created over years. And then again, to get into a big four consulting, it was one of my dreams at that point in time, because I'm like, I have to make it big. I can't be stuck in a small investment banking firm. So I had to really struggle to get into that big four, because that was a big achievement part of me, like, that I have to do better than the others. And my long term vision at that point in time was to live independently overseas, build a global career. And this was a vision I had since childhood. And I think it is kind of coming from a lot of Bollywood movies that you see, where they show you that, oh, all the rich people are overseas, all the non-resident Indians, NRIs they call, are staying overseas. So it was kind of developed from there. But I always wanted to be that influential person, that person who has a success, who has a global career. So my every decision or every action was in pursuit of that. So thankfully, I also had a lot of flexibility from family in terms of educating me and supporting me. That okay, you do what you have to, but then obviously we can't be extravagant. Like we can only support you so much. Um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of my early childhood, early career before making a move to New Zealand.
That's very interesting, and it's like really fascinating for me to hear how you have still taken different decisions. Like maybe in outer level you have chosen science, from science to bcom, and then bcom to really doing finance and getting into a big four, but still the underlying belief system I feel like was centered around your vision. One, it was influenced by like kind of an image or a version that you have created, coming from the parents, family, the Bollywood movies, and what success really looked like. um, and then success, financial, but also some kind of safety around that, and how your life around that time like was driven by that kind of belief system. I think the next part of your story, I think it's the most like pivoting like into a whole different thing. Anyway, you were living your dream to live overseas, you were independent, and you grew. You said you were a high achiever, got into a big four, all that, so you achieved that part of success while in India, and then now you get an opportunity to migrate. How does this happen, and what was that journey like?
Yeah. So you remember how I told you I was a high achiever, but not a top high performer.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you from there because this is very interesting. So what I mean by that is like I never performed that well at work. Okay. Even in school, I was not a great, as I said, I was not a top ranker. Even in college, I was just doing the thing that it takes me. So I wanted to achieve bigger things for my life, but I still couldn't. I wouldn't be like one of those top performing students or the top performers at work, who get the five-star ratings. I was never that person, even when I started working. So I had internalized that I'm an average person with big dreams. Will I get to go overseas? I don't know. Will I keep doing it what it takes to get there? Yes, I will, because that is in my control. So, this is around 4 years of me working, 3.5 years of me working in India in the Big Four in Mumbai office. I was at Ernst and Young at that point in time, and I knew that I wanted to go overseas. I wanted to go to one of the developed countries. So I was looking at US, UK, Singapore, Australia. New Zealand was not really on the cards at that point in time, but then I was like, let me try everywhere. So every single day for 2 consecutive years, I would apply, I would cold call uh, to all the recruiters across. And most of the times, I have got a rejection saying that you're not qualified enough yet. But something just kept me going. I'm like, I'm going to try because that's all in my control. I can't control the outcome. So it took me around 2 years of continuous uh, applications when I finally got a call from New Zealand that, hey, we do have an opening here. Would you like to come? And I was like, okay. I looked up a couple of things that, okay, look, New Zealand is a safe country for women if they want to live alone. That's all good. And otherwise, uh, everything else looks okay. But a lot of people told me that New Zealand is not the place where people go to grow their finance careers. I was the first one from a lot of the people around I knew in my network to make a move to New Zealand. This is back in 2016. So a decade back, it was not the most popular destination. And it's the other way now. Australia and New Zealand are the most popular destinations. But all I was like, this is the opportunity I have. I'll give it 2 years. If it doesn't work out, I can always come back. So I literally just I cracked the interview. I got the invitation to join Ernst and Young here, in EY in New Zealand, and I made the move.
Mhm.
And that was the journey of me, like, okay, finally getting what I wanted since childhood. It was not what I had planned because I really wanted to go to New York. Because again, Bollywood, you see that big things that, oh, people are having the cool life in New York and, like, they're going out and partying. And I'm like, I am getting in New Zealand. I don't know how that's gonna pan out, but I'm like, this is what I have on my hand. Let's go. So I just followed that vision that I had. that gut feeling, everything looks good, let's go. And that's how I I made my move. And that was like a big change in my life which I had. And that was and this was my late 20s. I made a move in my late 20s. It was very different to what I had thought, like, that I would go in my early 20s. But that, I would say, yeah, that's the biggest pivot I've made in my life. I'll stop there because I know it keeps going, but yeah.
No, like it's what was the immediate moments of or realizations of like or the gaps that you envisioned as a
Mm,
kid, and what New Zealand could be
mm,
like, or just like moving to a different country look
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and what you experience after migrating.
yeah. Because this was the biggest culture shock that I got. I had a vision in my head that once I go to New Zealand and once I start living my overseas life, I would be a very, very happy version of myself because I finally achieved what I wanted to.
Hmm.
This is what I thought, this is what I went with. But the reality was way different. Firstly, I landed in July 2016, the coldest month because it's winters out there, and I arrived with 90 kgs. Like I'm not a, I'm a overpacker. So I arrived, and the first couple of months, the first couple of years, in fact, were not exactly what I had thought. I'll tell you the exact reasons why. So, the very first thing is that New Zealand is a very individualistic country, just like any other Western country. And coming from a communal place like India, where you're always surrounded by your friends, by community, you are never alone. You don't eat alone. I did the exact opposite things of what I was doing in India. Like I was having coffees alone. I didn't have anyone to have lunches with. New Zealand was such a beautiful place, but I didn't have anyone to go out with. And that loneliness, obviously it turned into a lot of peace later on. But that was not what I had expected when I moved, because I'm like, no, this is not what I had written in in my journal of the manifestation that I had. I'm like, no, this is a completely different life. um, and it's not good or bad, it's just different. That's a different lifestyle, and I was not prepared for that. I was not ready for that.
Wanted to ask, so when you were feeling that,
Yeah,
so you written that in your journal, this is the version and this is what life will look like,
yeah.
and you experience this, the community driven kind of a culture where you have friends all the time, you were like spending that time, and then you come into a country where you had to bring yourself up to work and go home by yourself. What version of yourself did you connect with more, the confident Ritu who was independent, and just working your way out to doing things, being a high achiever and
Mm.
really giving everything, or that little Ritu who needed a little bit of reassurance?
The way I'll answer this question is like, when I moved and I started living that version, it cracked open a different version of me, in terms of that I thought I was confident to do all those things. But when I was by myself, it opened up so many thoughts, that doubt crept in, that whatever I had thought I wanted, was that even right?
Mm.
Was that even uh, what I really wanted? Because it made me doubt a lot of my decisions. Like especially when loneliness hits, you're not there for your family at critical times, and like you're missing out on such important events. And when you start thinking that what is all this for, it really made me doubt my vision that I had for such a long time. The younger Ritu obviously wanted that happiness of being in a very, very lively place, but what I got was something very different. And probably I needed that. And this is like 10 years down, I have that hindsight that why things happened the way it happened. But at that point in time, it really made me doubt a lot of my decisions. And this is something that I have always I used to suffer with, is a lot of lack of self trust. And my whole imposter syndrome journey that I had, that I had I have always doubted a lot of my decisions. I don't I did not have trust in my own decisions. I did things, but I didn't have 100% certainty that I should be doing. I used to seek a lot of validation.
Onto that point, so did you feel like that part of you having to doubt yourself, you started questioning that when you migrated, or did you think that that was something you were carrying while you were back in India as well?
Yeah, so that's a very good observation because uh, I was always carrying it. But when I got the time and the space to actually reflect on it, which was in New Zealand, that's when I realized I was carrying it for so long, but I never had the space to reflect on it. So when in those moments of, I would say, uh, I call it now peace, but that silence that I had, like after work, what do you do? Like after 6 p.m., you're literally on like on your own. I would come back to a silent apartment. I'm like, okay, you go to gym, but you still have time left. What do you do? And that was the time you start really thinking that what is exactly wrong with me, why do I feel certain way. And that was also the onset of my journaling journey, where I really started reflecting on how I feel because I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I'm like, okay, this is my outlet. And that's when I realized that I have been carrying this self-doubt for a very, very long time, but I never really did anything about it until one situation happened, and which was like a denied pay raise, which kind of, it was my most pivotal moment of my life, I would say. But until that time, I knew that something is wrong, but I never did anything because you're like, if you question too many things, you might shake up uh, the certainty that you've built for yourself, or the bubble that you've created for yourself, because you don't like, just like anyone, when you are not ready to face the truth, you're like, let it be, let it be at the back of your mind. You don't want to, like, you procrastinate. And I was a big procrastinator at that point in time. I used to like avoid the hard conversations with myself, with anyone. Um, but yeah, there was this moment where I had to face all of that and all together at once.
Thank you for that honesty and beautiful share, Ritu. It seems like for me, even though you had that cultural shock and massive shift in the identity when you migrated to New Zealand, that where you were so busy in the community driven culture, where you were always involved and doing things towards working to something even after work, that space that was granted to you in
Mm,
universe has led you to question some of the beliefs, sometimes in by force, because you led to I understand what you meant by the discomfort, because the bubble you meant is the identity, right? That's the bubble, the set of beliefs and the systems that we all carry, and as humans we like to protect that identity,
yeah,
and anything that shifts out of it is, it becomes uncertain, and that's
yeah,
where I think minds start to kind of wonder, and it becomes really uncomfortable to live in
mm,
that, so we come to the safety all the time. Safety
yeah.
might be not questioning it and just maybe or delaying it, procrastination. Um, how did that kind of show? I wanted to discuss a little bit more before we get into the pivotal moment.
Yeah.
How did this part of Ritu showed up in work in
Mm.
New Zealand?
So this is because this is very important, because I had so much of doubt and I used to question myself in most of the decisions, that used to play up in everyday conversations. That would mean that I never used to speak up in meetings as much because I would doubt myself, that am I even making sense? Am I even speaking the right thing? Do I even belong here? Because that was another thing that kept in my mind, because when you move from a country like India, and when you're younger, you question your place a lot, um, unless you've done the mindset work to actually believe in yourself. But at that point in time, I used to really doubt that, and it used to come up in everyday conversations as well, that I used to get feedback that, Ritu, you need to speak up a little bit more. Um, you need to back yourself a little bit more. And I never understood what that meant. I used to just be like, okay, this is it. And I'm like, I'm trying hard, but I don't know what's not working, because, that especially for people like us, you have been taught to work hard. You're like, you work hard, you'll get the results.
Mhm.
Because you keep your head down, you will get the results. I have been raised with that. Even in school, we never questioned anyone,
Mhm.
because if you did, you would get penalized. So when I moved to New Zealand, which is a very different work culture and basically a westernized way of working, is where you question, you challenge people, you voice your opinions. My internalized self doubt did not let me shine at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it it came to like it kind of compounded so much that I had to reach that breaking point. And like I believe that life has to put you through that for you to shine and to reach your next level. But every day I would say was a struggle of pushing myself to work and being like, oh, like maybe I'm not good enough, but hopefully no one finds it out.
Wow, that could have been really challenging. I myself relate to that, like being stuck in boardrooms, never having to question anything, just being the listener. Again, it relates back to my childhood, and I think the word that we are looking for is conformity, especially in sometimes in not sometimes it's ingrained in cultures, especially South Asian cultures, that you have to conform to ideas or that is taught by the parents, culture, society, and that is attached to being success. That's also could be a successful metric that you kind of follow. But I wanted to pick up the other side. So that part I do understand. Like it's all of a sudden in a new environment, so that identity part also is shifting, and it's kind of evolving a lot more around you trying to adapt to that. But the other part, you said one of the things that you couldn't speak up was you wanted to say like things right. Do you think that is something also relates to that little Ritu who was brought up in that environment, following that kind of things that you wanted to and getting things right?
Whenever I wanted to speak up, I wanted to make sure that I don't sound like an amateur and someone who doesn't know. So it has to be the right answer or no answer at all. And it comes down to the schooling, the education system back in India, which teaches you you have to give the right answer. And obviously now everything has changed, like but when I was growing up, like it was like it's either right or it's wrong, and if you're wrong, you kneel down. So a lot of the fears of being penalized, punished, that kind of started showing up in my corporate career, where I was like, I rather not speak up, let others speak. Like maybe that is what the answer is. And by the time the other thing, the other challenge that you have as a person of color is you give a lot of respect to everyone. So I waited for everyone to speak up in a meeting. And by the time what I wanted to convey was already gone, it was already done. And then I realized that, the system rewards, the corporate system here rewards people who are more visible. And it is a how it is. Again, nothing right or wrong, but it is what it is, how it is. And these all small things that kept me behind in my career for a very long time. Like a was my own self-doubt, which I was fighting internally. Secondly, because of that self-doubt, I was not able to advocate for myself. I was not putting myself out there to be visible, to position myself. So all of this, uh, I would say, it comes down to that system which I grew up with, the corporate system, the internalized self-doubt, the cultural system. All of them somewhere became my villains, like for me to shine.
That's a lot, Ritu. Like I can imagine that can be a lot, especially I mean it's even very high stakes when you have to work in big four firms when it's very fast paced. Like I think the culture is set up in a way to you to be like go and to get to these like kind of high pressure environments and deliver under pressure, compromising the other parts of life. I kind of, when you were telling that boardroom scenario, like in meetings that you were to speak at the last, I wrote a post about it. Me being the last person. I mean, that's what brought a smile to my face, and I was exactly facing that in my first job in Australia, where I felt like I knew I did all the hard work preparing for the meeting. I knew I had valuable insights to share, but when I got to the meeting, I felt like I just waited to share everything, and at the end, I just walked away, and there was nothing to share. That moment never came, and it's a hard lesson. I think especially can be related to a lot of migrants who grow up in that environment to conform and wait for your opportunity. It doesn't mean, again, not good or bad. Nothing is good or bad. It's the, without attaching a label whether what way is right, it's the distinct approach of like how, especially when you migrate, and how you interpret things, and then how you evolve in it. um Walk me to that moment. You said that pivotal moment where you had to see like things differently. It kind of got you into a phase of life where you had to do something. What was that pivotal moment?
Yeah. So I call you know I think everyone has heard this, but you do need a breakdown for your breakthrough. And I reached that point when, you know, when I was waiting for my, it was my performance review a couple of years down the line. And I knew that I worked hard. I didn't work exceptional, but I worked hard. And I was like, this should be rewarded, right? Like, because I worked hard. I used to work late nights. I used to work on the weekends. I used to deliver on time. So everything should work. But when I walked into that room, my manager, with a very, very sad face, said that unfortunately, this year we cannot give you a salary raise.
Hmm.
So forget promotion. I'm talking about normal progression, a normal salary raise. And in that moment, like, I tried my best to be professional and not cry, but I did. I was like, what just happened? And it kind of like, uh, it kind of broke that bubble that I was talking about, that wait, I've been working hard. I delivered things. Then what went wrong? And although on an outside this is a professional setback, it did crack open a lot of the things inside of me, that all that like, the beliefs that I had, that I don't belong here, I am not good enough, you don't you don't fit in here at all of that came true in that one moment for me. And I remember, like, I smiled through that entire conversation, and I'm like, okay, I'll just work harder next time. I don't know what to do, because I was not prepared for that conversation. It was a very, very um, extreme one for me. So I remember walking back that day, and although I had planned a celebration for myself, I'm like, I'll have a glass of wine, enjoy. That didn't happen. Um, but that day, I went home and I wrote down in my journal that from now onwards, like, the worst has happened. From now onwards, only good things are going to happen to me. I made that decision then and there, that the worst has happened. And I would say, like, like, imagine like a glass shattering, and, like, it just felt, the pain was like unbearable for me at that point in time, because although it was like salary raises, now that I think about it, it's not a big deal. But it was more than that. That incident opened up every belief that I thought about myself, came true for me. And at that time I didn't have much help. We are talking about almost, like, like 10 years back. There's not much of professional help, there's not much of coaching at that point in time. Like, it existed, but not the way it exists now. Like, I think now you just open social media and everything is available. At that time you had to google a little bit to find out, what's out there. But when I made that decision that, things are going to change for me, enough is enough, um, I started uh, like, doing the things that will really help me, which is basically, I underwent therapy to really help myself. I'm like, this is not just career coaching. I really need to work on my belief system, and probably for that I need therapy. So I went through career coaching, I went through therapy, I did a lot more journaling, but more reflective, in a way that, okay, what is going to help me, and small little actions that will help me build that self trust. So it's not an overnight journey of me building that confidence. It's taken me a lot of years of building those confidence blocks to reach this stage that I finally have now. But I would say, yeah, that I think I needed that, because I was living in a bubble for way too long. And think you need that slap in the face at times, or life just shows you that. And that's where my trajectory just changed that year.
Very interesting, Ritu. Thanks for sharing that. I think it seems like you have worked, like built a solid foundation after that
Mm.
moment. What I wanted to ask you is, like, for someone, I wanted to, until that moment, what were the most like initial steps you have taken, and how hard was for you to like, one thing is writing down, because again, sometimes when your belief system gets shattered, and something that happens outside the bubble or the identity that you're like trying to protect, so that moment itself is like kind of a realization, hey, look, this is what I've built my life. I have migrated to this country, I've been a high achiever, getting in, doing everything, delivering, confirming, and all of a sudden this happened. So I couldn't have imagined how hard was it for you to go back home and write that in your journal? But what prompted you to take that first step? Have you been a person who has been getting help before that moment? What was like, if we remove all those things you have mentioned, like what was the initial thought process like for you to actually realize that you need help?
So, firstly, like throughout the work, I knew that I am not feeling supported because I was like, everything is working against me at this point in time. Like, I am a migrant, nobody's understanding my point of view,
Mm,
nobody's understanding the doubt that I'm going through. And it was on me because again, a very hard person in terms of like, I am hard on myself. So, I was like, if I don't tell anyone that I'm not feeling confident, uh, how will they know? But
mm,
the other part was also, if I tell people that I am not feeling confident enough to do this job or this assignment, I would be labeled as weak. Again, something that comes from an Indian mindset or Asian mindset. So, to be the stronger one, at least on the face of it. So, I knew firstly that I'm not finding support in my current, workplace, which is fine. But I knew that the way I have lived my life till now is not going to take me to the next level. That realization for me right after that incident was like, I have lived my life like this, not asking for any help. Something needs to change. And I think there is this movie that I saw. I remember, like it was a Bollywood movie where this, actor says this. He's going through the worst time of his life, and he's like, "All the bad things have happened. Now only good things can happen." And I think I somewhere got inspired by that, and I'm like, hmm, I changed countries. I did everything right. I pursued my dream. Now I thought that I'll be very happy in this current role, but I'm not. So something is wrong, right? Now something needs to change. And that was like my own self talk telling me I need to change. I was not getting any help before. I never asked for help before because used to just believe that, oh, you're supposed to, fend for yourself. This is your life. No one is coming to save you. Again, those kind of
mm.
beliefs that we grew up with because we saw our parents struggle. So I'm like, oh, even I have to struggle. I can't have a soft life because they didn't have a soft life. So up until that point, I was just fending for myself. But once I made that decision, that's when I realized that help exists if you look for it.
Mm.
I started Googling things. I'm like, what do you do when you feel stuck in your career? What do you do if you want to, like, if you start feeling lost? I started Googling those things. And that's when I realized, there are these Quora threads and, like, on Reddit that people who are in similar situation, they're talking about it. And what are the steps that they took? And that's when I realized I do need to get into therapy. No, it was a big stigma at that point in time. So I remember I didn't tell anyone that I was going through it. I used to come back home from work and go through it online, and I didn't tell anyone because I thought, oh, people will think I'm crazy, to get that therapy at that point in time. I started getting coached. It was a confidence coaching to develop my self confidence and my mindset training. And I started doing those small steps which built my confidence. Like one or two things were, I used to go and have small talks with baristas because I'm like, I knew I'm not good at small talks. I'm gonna get over the fear. So I used to go and have a small chat with the people around. I would go and get, like, from with baristas out there, and that's how I realized that, oh, like, it's not that hard. And I used to tell myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'll probably not go to that coffee shop again if I fumble. So I started doing those small little things which helped me build that blocks, or, like, that level of self trust in myself. And like, over the years, I also, like, nominated myself to be on the board of a NGO. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. And somehow I got selected, and I was one of the youngest board members there. And those small things, like this, you start collecting evidence that things will work out for you. So it's like collection of evidence and that feedback loop that helped me.
That's amazing. That's very very insightful, and I think it will help many people. Like how you broke down the things, because sometimes confidence building therapy and doing mindset work can be so abstract. where people will still hesitate to take action because you don't know what it really looks like in someone's life, and how you shared in the way you did, Ritu, it will inspire someone definitely for some like things like thinking about worst case scenario, right? Because if you're stuck in a loop procrastinating and trying to delay it, maybe you know that there's a perfectionist side in you and doing things right, that is not allowing you to take the action when you know you have to. Shifting the narrative or the story, you're telling yourself what is the worst story, what worst outcome that can happen. Simple thing like going to a cafe and hey saying hello, or volunteering yourself to your NGO board. Worst thing can happen. Has will like definitely breaking that thought pattern of that putting yourself in a future, like a future state illusion, in other word, where you think that okay, I have to be what if it doesn't work out, rather than thinking worst case. If it happens, this is the worst case, and then actually getting the feedback loop is it's another an amazing example, like just getting feedback, improving, and going to the iteration. um, what parts of your younger self or Ritu up to that point that you had to let go of while you were taking therapy, confidence building, and all these things? Did you realize that yeah, you were building some skills, but on in addition to that, parallelly, I feel there are certain things that you had to let go of?
I did, like, I think as a younger Ritu was very protected, like in terms of um, when I say protected, it means like, you're not exposed to the outside world as much when you are living in that sort of a space, because when you go to school, like, your parents are escorting you, like for your safety, and just the exposure to the outside world is not as much. And talking to strangers is not something you do commonly, at least at that point in time. So I had to let go of that belief that it's it's safe to talk to strangers. It's safe to um, act, or like, do something which you've not done before. Like, for example, I never used to speak to the shopkeepers out there when I was buying anything. I was not allowed to go outside. And when I was doing that here, I had to be like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's fine. Like, and I had to let go of my fear to be right, the fear of failure that I had. Like, for example, in India, in 10th standard, your board is the most critical exam of your life, because
Mhm,
that tells
mhm.
you whether you've passed or failed and you stay in school, or you graduate to college. And I remember my mom telling me, see, what's the worst that can happen? You'll fail and you'll again be in school. And I remember that here as well. Whenever I did anything, I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'll get a rejection, and then how will I feel? Okay, it's not going to be that bad. When you just start thinking that, okay, how will I feel after that? Okay, so I think it's that thing of asking myself three things, like three, okay, and once you normalize that feeling, that's when you can really ascend in your life. So I really had to let go of that fear of failure, the fear of unknown, the fear of being able to talk to strangers. And I think a lot of fears that I grew up with. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, Ritu. I mean, this is where I think, after you have done the work, I think this is like it was more of a like radical self assessment you have done, and
Mm,
then for you to take conscious steps in taking this coaching journey and all the other work you have done to let go of certain parts that didn't serve you to the
yeah.
version you want to become, and then also to build skills, to reframe your thought patterns. um, Out of this journey, project upgrade is being built. I mean, that's, for me it's very inspiring. How did this come to life, Ritu?
Mm.
And I'm keen to hear the journey of project upgrade her.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it didn't start like as a one moment.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that, okay, one day I will sit and create this whole business. It grew from my own journey where I was, facing this self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And there was a moment that I realized that, you know what, if I'm facing it, I'm sure other women also facing it. It
Mm-hmm.
can't just be me. I can't be the special one. So over time, I think once you start fixing your life, and once you feel supported enough, you reach a stage where you want to start helping others. And I'm that, just that personality I am, and you are also one of them. That's how we've connected. You want to help others, not go through what you've gone through. So once I reached that stage where I was like, I'm fine now, I'm ready for my next evolution, I realized that I was naturally gravitating towards mentoring people, towards helping people. So I would go and mentor girls in Auckland University, in schools. I would just go and volunteer my time a lot to NGOs. Even back in India, I used to do a lot of stuff where I would just volunteer my time. So I realized that a big part of me is to help people. And then, I don't know, something just happened in me back in 2022. I'm like, you know what, I'll just create content, and I'll just help people with workplace confidence at that point in time. And I was doing that for many months. And when I started receiving messages from people just saying that, you know what, we needed this, thanks for starting it, that kind of gave me the confidence that, okay, people really needed that. So it kind of started with a confidence platform, but now it has evolved into like helping women basically uh, get clarity, confidence, and self advocacy to land good roles. And I think the evolution has been over a couple of years, but it again, it wasn't that one moment that, okay, like I'm gonna build a business and all of it. It was more around my mission of just helping women claim and, I think, position themselves for well paid roles, because that is what kept me stuck for a longest time. Like my self doubt did not let me advocate for myself, and I missed so many opportunities for building a financially rewarding career. I kind of made it up now, because like once I think you accelerate in your career, like, you know, I just the effort compounds. I kind of made it up, but then I wanted women to learn from my mistakes, and I wanted to be that person, like, uh, I would say an open book that they can learn from my journey. Because I've seen too many people. I've been in uh, s- I would say in rooms where I've never seen a person like me speaking on the panel. I've never seen anyone talking about how to build confidence. They would always talk about what they've achieved already. But for me, that's not relatable. I want to know what took you from here to there. And not seeing people like me is what kind of pushed me to, okay, let me be that person who will talk about it. And thankfully, I've got the response. I've helped a lot of women over a couple of years, and that is what keeps me going. And that really brings me a lot of joy. Like I would say it's my, not my passion, it's my purpose, like to help people. And this is my one of my ways of doing it.
And it's a beautiful purpose, Ritu. And it's I can see that it's how it's been coming to life with your own life experience,
Yeah.
and then a genuine place of being of service to others. Not just through like just as a business, but you've been like volunteering, and then you had that vision to help
Mm,
someone else, one person out there,
yeah.
who is going through what you're going through or you have gone through. I'm curious to know from who you have helped so far, especially women in mid-level careers. What are some kind of common patterns you have observed and then you have helped them to like navigate? Have you
Mm,
seen these similar patterns, like kind of relating to the childhood or the stories,
mm.
that is creating the self-doubt or not asking for a raise or not really showing up in a way that they deserve, and self-advocacy? What have you observed from your
Yeah.
experience now after helping so many?
Yeah. And the I think one of the things that I've seen is like, because of sharing my journey, I you attract your tribe. So similar, I've seen very common themes in the women that I've helped. Like most of the women who naturally get gravitated towards me are women of color. I've also helped others, but mostly because of my experiences and my cultural upbringing, it
Mm.
attracts a lot of similar women. So a lot of women that come to me, they start with a place of not knowing what next for them. And it's not about what role they want, it's because they are not clear in their value or what they bring in. And that again stems from the fact that they have been doubting themselves for so long. And the second pattern that I've seen is, again, not being able to advocate for themselves because they
Mm.
believe that they are not good enough in these situations. Like most of them are, again, migrants, or they have been living overseas from their origin country for a very long time. But that sense of belonging is something which is not internalized yet. And again, like that's something that you have to work on in a different manner, like either you go through therapy or other methods. But that pattern comes up when you are not able to speak up in meetings because you think that, oh, I need to have the right answer, or probably let everyone else speak up and then I will. So I've seen women feeling stuck, lost, not knowing what next. I have seen women who are not able to own their value because of the self doubt that they have.
Mhm.
They feel that they don't belong here. And third pattern that I've seen is like, even if they have everything, they experience the skills, they're not able to position themselves because the system wants you to be a little louder, to be a little more clearer. And communication skills is something that we have to learn because it's our second language. Like I did not learn English. Uh, Growing up, I had to, like, my first language is Hindi, but I had to learn English throughout my school. And as a person of color who is learning a second or third language, I mean, it's harder for you because you have to translate it in your mind. So it just takes a little more effort. And obviously, you're competing with people who are locals, or people who have been raised with that, with your first language being English. So, again, being able to communicate, to position yourself for those high paying roles is something which women struggle with. So, these are the common patterns that I've seen. And that is what my work is, to help them do that. Because I think you can be great, you can be so skilled and experienced, but if you can't tell me in one sentence how good you are, then unfortunately it goes to the role goes to someone who can do that for me.
Really empowering and much needed work in the world that you're doing, Ritu. I mean, we can go along, and because it's all almost like I just realized it's almost been an hour we've been chatting, and it's been a really wonderful discussion. Hearing about your journey, especially the in a way you explained on what parts of your story that you owned and how you had to let go of certain things which were really not that comfortable,
Yep.
and then how you relate that to everyone else out there, that they have that power in them to first understand their true nature, and then also acknowledging that they can have support if they need to.
Mm.
We usually end our conversations with one question, um, but I'm gonna ask two today
Okay. Okay.
from you. My first would be, if we again now go back to that little Ritu who is growing up in India, doing everything right, being a high achiever, having big dreams, aspirations. What would now the current version of Ritu will tell that younger version?
Hmm. So, firstly, I would pacify her because she was very anxious about the future. So, I would tell her that things are going to be okay, but you have to take the steps and you have to keep moving forward to know what's next for you. But the other thing I would also tell her is that you don't have to do everything alone. You don't have to suffer alone. There are people around you who are ready to help, but you have to ask for it, because help appears when you start looking. They say, like, God appears when you want, when you call for it. So you have to ask, because what the little Ritu never did was, like, she felt unsupported. She thought like she'll have to just figure it out by herself. Like, so that would be my key message to her.
Beautiful. Isn't that in a way, if you say self compassion?
I, yeah, because I think we all have been, taught, like most of us, that you can't have it easy, uh, and to let go of that is so hard, uh, because you're like, well, when you get something easily, you're like, how can I get it that easily? I need to work harder for this, right? So I would say yes, compassion, self compassion is the right word for it. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Ritu. Last question is, what's one thing you have unlearned throughout this journey?
I think one of the things I would say is, like, I deserve to be where I am. I literally, everything that happened to me throughout my life, I used to always think that I don't deserve it, but somehow my luck has helped me. even though
Mhm.
I've worked very hard in my life, like, and I say that very proudly because I know I've worked hard in my life to get what I want. But with every step, I used to think I don't deserve it. But yeah, probably universe is taking care of me. But I want to. I think I've learned that thing that I deserve it. That's I'm a good person. I am like giving it back to the society because I want to. So I do deserve that. And I think a lot of other people also need to hear it, not just like women of color. I think people need to hear it. Like if good things are happening to you, you probably deserve it.
So powerful, Ritu. Thank you for sharing that. I think that would be a very sweet spot to end our conversation. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your beautiful story. It's been like a wonderful discussion. I really, really appreciate your time, Ritu.
No, thank you for like having me. And like honestly, this conversation has been very raw. The way you conducted this, like it just unlayered a lot of those things which were hidden, and I think you just brought it up so naturally. So thank you for holding that space.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.